All right, welcome to Awkward Teenage Years. If you have seen our show before, thank you for coming back. Thank you for everybody who's watching on the live stream. I don't know if there's anybody watching on the live stream. I think my mom's watching on the live stream. Thanks, Mom, for watching on the live stream. If you've never seen our show before, this is a show where we gather in this basement and we relive our teenage traumas for your entertainment. It's a lot of stories, true stories, about things like, having a first crush and getting decimated by that person, middle school and high school misadventures with drugs and police and drinking and all kinds of things. But mostly it's about coming of age. That's what we love so much about our awkward teenage years. And tonight, we've got 5 of New York's best storytellers for you. Really excited to introduce them all to you very soon. While some latecomers come in, I am going to tell you a little story, actually, that is going to be in my solo show that's going to be at the Frigid Festival that Debbie just mentioned. And by the way, I'm Will Clegg. I have a habit of forgetting to introduce myself whenever I host the show. I'm Will, and so my show is called Syncope, and it goes throughout my whole life, but the part I want to tell you tonight is actually from my teenage years. I wrote this story for this show. Back, we did a bunch of shows online in the early, lockdown part of the pandemic, and so I performed it there. But most of you have probably never heard. Well, Andrew's heard it. I don't know if anybody else has heard it. So yeah, I'm gonna jump into it. So if you could, Lauren, get my family portrait up here real quick. Yeah, very cute. That's me. My ponytail you can't see there, but I had long hair that had to be pulled back for this picture. That's me in the middle, with my parents flanking me there, and my little brother and sister, and you'll see why I've included them all here in just a moment. So I'm sitting on the couch in my parents' house. I'm 14 years old, and my parents are sitting in 2 chairs right across from me. And my brother and sister have been sent up to their rooms right after dinner so that my parents can have a talk with me. So obviously, I'm in some trouble, right? I get in trouble a lot, though, so I don't know exactly what kind of trouble I'm in just yet. And then my dad reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out a little plastic baggie that's filled with green leaves. And he holds it up, and he says, "We found this in your sock drawer, and it's either marijuana or spices for spaghetti sauce." And he's trying to bring a little levity to this situation, right? But the thing is, those are spices for spaghetti sauce. He's got in his hand a bag full of oregano and basil that I have made into little fake marijuana buds by spitting in my hand and rubbing the herbs together. And I've been selling this fake marijuana to unsuspecting teenagers so that I can get money to buy real marijuana for myself. And this is a real conundrum because I don't want to tell my parents that I'm selling fake weed. I don't want to tell them I'm selling any kind of weed, right? So I just decide I gotta pretend like it's real, and I say, well, you caught me, and then my dad, he's a physician, so he launches into this long monologue about all the dangers of smoking pot, which I know is all bullshit, right? I've smoked a lot of pot by this point, and nothing bad has happened to me. So what are you talking about, Dad? But I just listen, nod, look ashamed, My mom, meanwhile, is sitting there just steaming, just waiting for her turn. And so when he's finished, she just launches into it. She's like, "Do you know how much trouble you would be in? Do you know how much trouble we would be in if the police came here, they raided our house, and they found this in your sock drawer? Do you know who would be in trouble? Not you. No, it'd be us. We would go to jail." And I'm like, why are the police raiding our house? If you and Dad are involved in some kind of tax evasion scheme, maybe, but they're not coming here for my little bag of weed, What are you talking about? I shouldn't have opened my mouth because I was only going to be grounded for 3 weeks, but then they decide it's better if I'm grounded for 6 weeks. So I start stomping up the stairs, thinking about all the decisions that have led me to this moment. And I know that my parents are extra mad because this is not the child that they thought they were having. When I was much younger, like my brother's age here, I was a real goody two-shoes kid. I mean, I did everything they told me to do. I got straight A's in school. I went to Sunday school every week. I played all the sports. I was the model child. But then I got to middle school, and I started getting bullied for being the model child. And I did not like being bullied, so I decided the best way to not be bullied is to be one of the kids that hangs out with the bullies. And to do that, you have to grow your hair out and start playing in a garage band and smoking cigarettes, and soon that leads to smoking weed, and weed's expensive. And so you have to sell fake weed to get money. And that's how I got here, actually. But then when I get up to my room and I sit down on the bed, I remember that I actually have a little bit of real weed left in my good hiding spot. I would never put real weed in my sock drawer. No. It lives in my bass drum of my drum set, like wrapped up in a towel. My mom wouldn't find that for like 2 more years. But I decide that I don't want to get caught with this real weed, so I got to get rid of it. So the next day at school, I asked my friend Mary, does she want to buy it off of me? And I have like enough for like one big joint. And she's like, yeah, great, I'll buy it from you. We live right around the corner from each other. So we make a plan to meet that evening. My parents are going out on a date, leaving me to babysit my brother and sister. And so I'm gonna meet up with Mary and sell her this joint for $5. A lot of money in 1994. And so my parents go out. I wait till the sun's down. And I sit my brother and sister down in front of the TV, and they're mesmerized because we're not allowed to watch TV on weeknights, So they're just like lost in whatever they're watching. I sneak back to the back door outside the garage and head out, and I walk down the street of this very suburban neighborhood, manicured lawns and nice cars, no street lights. It's really dark out, but like nobody's suspecting that there's going to be a teenage drug deal in this neighborhood, So I've got a little like strut in my step as I'm walking down to the construction site where we always get in trouble, and there's this like half-built house, just like the frame of it has been there for 2 years. And so I'm waiting there, and I see Mary and her friend Jen walking up the street. And then I see that there's 2 guys with them that I don't know, and so this group all comes up, and we get back into the construction site, and they introduce me to Sammy and Chris. They go to a different school, that's why I don't know them, but they look exactly like the bozos that I hang out with at my school. They got like huge white undershirts as t-shirts and just gigantic baggy jeans with chains for their wallets, and like, so I do this deal with Mary, she gives me $5, I give her the joint, and I think we're done, but then she's like, we want to smoke it now, so can you just like keep a lookout while I, I'm like, yeah, fine, and so Mary and Jen walk a little further back into this construction site to smoke the joint, but Sammy and Chris, they're straight edge, they don't do any drugs, so they hang back with me. And we get to talking, and like, we're just talking about some of the, the girls we think are cute and the bands we like, and like, they're pretty cool guys, I guess. And then we get to kind of like a lull in the conversation because we don't know each other. And then Sammy, he asks me, hey man, can I borrow some money? Like, I'm a 14-year-old kid. Yeah, I'm never going to see you again. Like, why are you asking me if you can borrow? I don't have a job, anymore. So like, I'm like, no, man, I don't have any money to lend you. I'm sorry. And Chris is like, well, you got that 5 that Mary just gave you. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I'm never gonna see you again. And then just then, Sammy comes up behind me and he jams something into my back. And I kind of instinctively go like this, like put my hand on my hip, but like he gets right up on my ear and he's like, hey man, just give him the $5. And in a lifetime of poor decisions, this is still one of the worst I've ever made. I reach with my pinky finger and I touch the cold metal barrel of a gun. So I freeze up and I reach in my pocket slowly and I take out this crumpled up $5 bill and I hand it over and I say, you don't even have to pay me back. And then just then we hear Mary and Jen coming back, and they just like break away from me, and they're just like, hey, be cool, man, be cool, all right, everything's cool. I'm like, yeah, everything's cool. And they're like slapping me 5, and like I'm trying to act normal, but I don't know what normal is anymore, you know. And then Mary and Jen come up, and like it's very dark, and they're really high now, so I don't think they like see that anything's really going on. And then we all say goodbye, and they just walk off down the street. And as soon as they're out of sight, I just sprint all the way home. And I get back in the back door, and I rush into the living room where I've left my brother and my sister, you know, and then they're still just sitting there watching the TV. They don't even see me come in, you know, just like nothing has happened. But like something has happened, you know. I'm still shaking. Like I can't stop thinking, like what if that guy, like, I don't know, was it loaded? They're like, what if he pulls the trigger? What if he pulled the trigger by accident? Like, what just happened? But I can't tell anybody about this. You know, I certainly can't tell my little brother and sister. I'm not going to tell my parents. Like, I don't even want to tell Mary and Jen. I mean, just the whole thing is like embarrassing and terrifying all at once. And I go back up to my room, and I don't even sleep that night, you know, because I guess what my mom really should have warned me about is not the police, you know, but that when you're operating outside of the law like this and something happens, and there's not really anybody to go to for help. So there's more to that story, and there are plenty more stories in my show if you want to come see it. Yeah, so it opens up 2 weeks from tonight right here in this theater, and there's postcards over there and a poster out there, and that's maybe the last time I mention it tonight. We'll see. I don't know. All right. So we have 5 wonderful guest storytellers here for you tonight, and let's get the show moving and start bringing them up. Yeah. All right. Let me see here. Who do we have up first? Yes. Okay. First up. She is a moth champion. She's been on Stories from the Stage. She's performed at the Comedy Cellar, and she's the co-producer of a show in Hoboken called On the Waterfront, which I've had the privilege of performing on a few years back. Really excited to have her here for the second time on our show. Please welcome Carla Katz.
I gotta strike that pose, mate. So when I was a kid, is this good volume-wise? Yeah. When I was a kid, I learned there were 2 classes of teenagers: those who had cars and losers. And growing up in New Jersey, where I grew up, having a car just meant that you had freedom. And I was trapped in a house with a really strict dad and a mother that wielded a wooden spoon like an Italian prison guard. And, you know, we're a paycheck to paycheck family, so I know that the only way I will ever get a car is if I buy one myself. So that means I need money, which means I need a job, and babysitting is not cutting it. So at 13 years old, I lie about my age to get a job at Salvatore's Italian restaurant and pizzeria. And Sal likes that I'm Italian, and he hires me on the spot, and I love it. I mean, Sal's is like strip mall Italian with the red faux leather booths and the thin white tablecloths and plastic plants and the fake red brick. And it's this big sort of rectangular cement building off of a busy 2-lane highway down in Burlington County in South Jersey. And Sal's has one side, and the XXX adult bookstore and Film Depot has the other side. So we share the parking lot, which gives you a sense of who our regular clientele is. And Sal's usually nice to me unless I make any mistake at all, like if I forget the Parmesan cheese shakers. And then he just will scream at me in Italian, "Stu nada, stupido." And I do my best not to make him mad, but the maddest that I ever made him was when I did the unthinkable and touched the door to the basement. there's a sign always, and I knew better. I mean, there's a sign on the door. It says "No touch," and Sal had warned me like a million times not to go down there. But I spilled a bunch of pizza sauce, and I needed a mop. And the second my hand touches the door, Sal just starts shrinking. No touch, no touch, no touch, kabish? But I did not kabish. Because I was like fantasizing, what the hell is going on in that basement? And you know, my fantasies were kind of crazy because Sal would send me next door to the XXX for change. But I needed this job if I was ever gonna get a car. So I minded my own business and I kept my mouth shut. And a little later that day, one of my regulars, Mr. Scarlotta, came in. Everything about Mr. Scarlotta creeped me out. He was always in this sort of ill-fitting black suit that smelled like cigars and disinfectant, and that he always ordered the mussels Pasilipo did nothing for his overall aroma. Get Sal, Dal. I need to see him. Get him now. Unfortunately for me, Sal is in the forbidden basement. But I know that Mr. Scarlotta is some kind of big shot because every time Sal talks to him, it's in this very obsequious way, and he scares me, so I sort of just gently knock on the door. Sal, Mr. Scarlotta's here. No answer, just crickets. And Mr. Scarlotta's getting really impatient. Come on, doll, now. And I don't know, my neck is sweating, my hands are shaking, but I open the door like a tiny crack and I put my mouth to the crack and I just scream, Sal! And he flies up the stairs and he swats the door open and close in seconds. And in those seconds, I just see red flocked wallpaper, red carpet, a red light, Sal's red face, and he gives me this evil sort of like, I'll deal with you later look. And then he just greets Mr. Scarlotta warmly in Italian. And, you know, I expected buckets and mops, not this like weird Rococo scene, but I just, you know what? I keep my mouth shut, I mind my own business, and I go back to work. And I go wait on Mr. Scarlotta and his 3 colleagues in equally bad suits. 4 orders of mussels, doll, extra bread. And when I go clear the table, I realize that Mr. Scarlotta's forgotten his keys. So I grab the keys and I run out in the parking lot. Mr. Scarlotta, you forgot your keys, but he's already in the passenger seat of a car headed out onto Route 130. And he says, no, doll, that's for you. And then he sticks his arm out the window and he waves it towards the front of the restaurant. And I turn around and I see a brand new black Cadillac. And I'm thinking, come on, this is a joke. I mean, Mr. Scarlotta doesn't seem like the joking type, but a car. So I start to panic. I run in, I find Sal, I give him the keys, he comes out. He starts the caddy, it starts, and then he walks over to me really slowly and seriously, and he puts his hands on my shoulders, and he sort of scrunches down so he can look me in the eye, and he says, you gotta take it a car. You got to take it a car. And, I mean, I want to take the car. I mean, it's like my dream come true, my wish granted by my fairy godfather. But, I mean, first, I am not old enough to drive. And second, literally had just seen The Godfather. And I know a Cadillac is not an appropriately sized tip. But Sal he keeps insisting. He was like, you gotta offer respect, you gotta offer respect, you gotta take it a car. And, I don't know, I'd start thinking, well, maybe I could just put it in my parents' garage for a while. But am I gonna bring them in harm's way? And I don't wanna end up with a severed horse head in my bed. And I don't know what to do. So I panic, and I do the only thing I could think of, I quit. But that Cadillac haunts me. I think about it constantly. I think about it when I'm soaking my feet after my double shift at the Golden Dawn Diner. I think about it when I ride my stupid bike to work. And I think, God, if I just go back to Sal's and take the caddy, my life would just be so much easier and so much better. I wouldn't have to work this hard, but I don't. And by the time I turn 17, I've saved up enough, and I drive my 1974 Glacier Blue Buick Skylark down Route 130, just queen on the 8-track, feeling like an extremely liberated woman. And I purposely drive past Sal's, and I see that it's all boarded up now. And I don't regret not taking the caddy. I feel really proud, actually, that I bought my own getaway car. And I never found out what happened to the black caddy, but I did find out that Sal's was raided for illegal gambling. So somebody finally got a look in the basement. Thank you.
Great, classic New Jersey story. Yeah, I'm a transplant to New Jersey. I'm originally from North Carolina. I've lived in Jersey for 18 years now, so I love a good Jersey story. And a South Jersey story, that's where my wife's from too.
Okay.
I love stories about like first cars though. It makes me really nostalgic for my first car, which was really just like a place for me to smoke cigarettes, you know, when I really think about it. But yeah, great. Thanks so much, Carla. Let's hear it for her one more time. Carla's going to be performing on a show on February 22nd over at the KGB Red Room on 4th Street called Dead Ladies Show. Which that's an intriguing title, right? So yeah, so make sure you check that out. All right, keeping the show moving right along. Ready for our next storyteller. We're excited to have her in the in-person show. We had her on one of those pandemic broadcasts that I don't know if anyone ever watched 3 years ago. Really excited to have her here in person. You may have seen her on Generation Women, Stories from the Stage, or the Story Collider. Please welcome Vicki Eastus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my high school. Yeah, that's how they dressed us up for graduation. Yeah. This takes place a little earlier than that. It's the middle of 6th grade, and I am really struggling with the book we're reading. Johnny Tremaine. If you don't know, it's a historical fiction about a apprentice silversmith on the eve of the American Revolution. It is not that this book is too difficult for me. It's the opposite. It is so boring. I don't care about Johnny. The print is insultingly large, and the illustrations are juvenile. But my reading teacher saves me. She pulls 8 of us out of class and tells us that for the rest of the year, we are going to have reading class with a brand new teacher, her first year teaching, Miss Caldwell. And Miss Caldwell is going to guide us through reading material that is more suited for our very advanced reading levels. Thank you. So our first meeting with Miss Caldwell is in the school library, befittingly in a high school seminar room. Thank you. And Miss Caldwell tells us that she's looked through all the books that the school has on hand, and we're going to start with a short story. It's by some guy named Franz Kafka, and it's been translated from the German. All I know is it is a big step up from insipid little Johnny Tremaine. So my mom is driving carpool home that afternoon, and my next door neighbor, Karen, she's in this elite reading group too, and we're in the back seat just giggling about this book that Miss Caldwell has assigned. And my mom finally says, "What in the world are you girls going to be reading?" And we giggle and we giggle, and we finally can choke out that Miss Caldwell has assigned us to read The Penal Colony. We think it's about penises. We don't know anything about penises. And Mom explains, no, penal has to do with punishment, One very concerned phone call later, Miss Caldwell readjusts. And we spend the rest of the year reading Agatha Christie and The Gift of the Magi, and a very, very moving month analyzing the poetry of Carly Simon's song lyrics. Now, my school made a big distinction between 7th graders and 6th graders. 7th graders were grouped with the 8th graders. They were young adults, they had leadership positions, they had dances. 6th graders, we had to hang out with the little kids. I was so ready to be treated like the mature person I knew I was. So that summer, between 6th and 7th grade, I demanded more freedom. And my best friend and I convinced our parents that, hey, we'll stick together, but we are old enough to go to the mall by ourselves without parents. And to be honest, I kind of think our parents just wanted us out of the house. My dad was a lawyer for the city of Dallas, and he'd been busy all year defending this ridiculous thing that Dallas had done. They had a citizens movie review board. And the way this worked is that they would watch movies. PG-13 didn't exist yet. So they would watch all the PG-rated movies, and if they thought that they were not suitable, they would re-rate them M16, and that meant you had to be 16 to see the movie. So of course, 20th Century, Paramount, they're always suing Dallas because Dallas was killing their profits. Dad did not care how I spent my days. Mom is deeply engrossed in the Watergate hearings, on TV all day, every day. And I mean, hey, I read the newspaper, I am politically aware, I know that Nixon is a crook, whatever. Heather and I are going to the mall. Now, Heather and I had no money, and we didn't really care about clothes, but we had a routine. We started with free samples of smoked Gouda and summer sausage at Swiss Colony, famous for their cheese balls rolled in pecans. Then we would stroll to the melody shop, where one of the salesmen was playing the Wurlitzer organ, and we would thumb through the new record albums. After an Orange Julius, we headed to our favorite store, Spencer Gifts. You may remember that Spencer started with music posters, right? All your favorite bands. Some of them were black light posters, which was kind of druggy. But then when you went in, they had keychains and scented candles that were shaped like mushrooms and flowers. They had gag gifts. You could buy a deck of cards with the Playboy Bunny logo on it. And they sold face massagers. I had no idea why you needed to massage your face. But Heather and I loved looking at everything at Spencer Gifts. It's where we spent most of our afternoon, and then Heather's mom picked us up, drove me home. I walk in the house, and it's a little unusual because Dad's there with all of his colleagues, and they all have a drink or a beer in their hand. They're clearly celebrating. Dad had been on trial all week defending the Dallas Movie Board's re-rating of the classic movie Paper Moon. Paper Moon stars Ryan O'Neal and then 9-year-old daughter Tatum O'Neal. She won an Academy Award, but her character, they're a father-daughter pair of con people. They run all these scams during the Great Depression. But Tatum O'Neal's character cusses a lot. She says shit, she says son of a bitch, and that was too much for the Dallas Movie Board. They rated it non-appropriate. So I walk in and I say hello to the couple of Dad's colleagues that I know, and one of the men I don't know says, "Hey, Alex, is this your younger daughter?" And my dad says, "Yeah, that's Vicki." And the guy says, "Wait, this is the daughter that you just told a jury was young and innocent, and while it would be okay for her to see this movie, she had to see it with you so that you could explain why the language was inappropriate." Dad says yes, and I am outraged. How dare my father use me as the poster child for little kids who have to have language explained to them. I am so angry that my dad thinks that I am not mature enough to see paper moon. So then my dad looks at me, and I'm wearing a button, a bright yellow button. If you just glance at it, it looks like a smiley face button. But if you look at it, instead of a smile, it's a frown with a tongue sticking out. And instead of smile, my button says, shit. My dad burst into laughter. All of his colleagues burst into laughter. A few weeks later, Mom takes me to see Paper Moon, and she doesn't let me wear my button. She says it's inappropriate. Thank you.
I want to listen back to the recording of you just walking through the mall. It's such great nostalgia of that era. We had Spencer's Gifts at the mall too, but we had this store in Charlotte called Infinity's End that I loved and that my mom hated. But I couldn't drive yet, so she would have to take me there. I could get her to go maybe a couple times a year. And it was definitely a head shop. They had bongs and stuff in the back, but we didn't go all the way back there. I just wanted T-shirts of all the bands that I loved, like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Rage Against the Machine, my absolute favorite during this era. And I can still remember every time we walk in there, my mom just getting this shiver down her spine, and me just looking around, smiling wide at all these shirts to pick from. I get one shirt. It was always a Rage Against the Machine shirt. But I don't know. Maybe I have to write a story about that. But let's hear it one more time for Vicki, everybody. Amazing walk down memory lane. All right, moving the show right along. We've got our next storyteller for you. He has his own solo show about getting in trouble on the internet called ASL that he performed right here on the stage not too long ago. And he is a host at The Moth. And he was actually the host at The Moth the first time that my name got pulled out of the hat. So he's my favorite host of The Moth. Yeah. And it's the night that I met Carla, too. So that was a great night back in Jersey City. Yeah. Please welcome to the mic, Mr. Andrew Mcgill.
All right. Hello, everybody. Do we have that photo? Oh, take a gander. When I was 13 years old, this kid was a bad kid. I was a bad kid, and not just a bad kid for white kids. I was bad for a bad kid for a black kid. My parents are from the Caribbean, and one thing you don't do in a Caribbean household is disrespect a teacher. And one time I called the teacher a son of a bitch. And my mom was and she's a single mom. She's raising myself, my older brother, and my sister. And she's like, nah, you gotta go. You can't leave. You can't stay in this house anymore. So she took this guy to Long Island. And that's where my aunt and uncle lived. And I would always go to Long Island for the summer. We had just stupid times there. And it was great because I can go, but I could also leave. But this time my mom is like, no, you're gonna go there and you're gonna live there because you're a bad kid. Maybe they'll teach you manners. So I got shipped out to Long Island, and I remember going there on the LIRR, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna miss Brooklyn, I'll miss all my friends. I'm gonna miss calling my teachers a son of a bitch. But when I got to Long Island, it was cool, man. I finally got my own room. I shared it with my cousin, but I still had my own room. Back in Brooklyn, we were in a one bedroom. I slept on the couch, and I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. I had chores. I was like, fold laundry. I was, cleaning the garden. It was cool. And I did learn manners. I learned manners, and I became a very respectful child. But I still had that gritty Brooklyn in me. I still was trying to do hood rat stuff with these strange white kids in Long Island. And I remember the first day of coming into school, I met these two kids. It was EJ and Chris. and we just became boys. And EJ was like, "Yo, do you want to smoke weed with me?" And I was like, "I don't know what weed is, but I'm definitely down. I'm definitely down to do that." And I was like a bad Long Island kid. It just transferred over from Brooklyn to Long Island. And the first report card I got, one of the teachers wrote that I talked too much in class. I thought going to class I could just practice my comedy routine while I was doing my work, and my teachers didn't think that was funny. So they sent this report. They're like, he talks too much in class, and my aunt and uncle saw it, and I was like, maybe they'll just ship me back to Brooklyn. You know, that's what happened with my mom. And they're like, no, we're gonna discipline you. And I was like, what's discipline? And they beat me. They beat me. I was never disciplined by two people before. It was like a tag team match. It was often not a tag team. It was a triple threat. I was by myself. And I remember going back upstairs to the room that my cousin and myself shared, and he was looking at me, and I was like laying on my stomach, and he's like, "You good?" I was like, "I just can't lay on my back on my other side because it hurts." And he's like, "Yeah, man, you gotta like watch out." And he's like, "You gotta figure out ways to get around it." He's like, when they would call home for me, I would just disconnect the phone before I got home, so like I wouldn't get the numbers. He's like, "Yeah, you got to get home before the mail comes, so then send stuff." I was like, "Yo, why didn't you tell me this before?" And he's like, "You should have told me." I was like, "You're absolutely right. I should have told you all the hood rat stuff I was trying to do." And I tried to be better in school, but it was just too fun. I was like, the kids really want to hear these bits. I had this one time I would sit in the lunchroom and I would drink milk through my nose. The kids loved that. The school did not love that. They were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "This is my audience. What do you want me to do?" The people need the milk through the nose. And they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have to send a letter home." And I finally got privy to what my cousin was doing. I was like taking letters. I was like, "Oh, they're not gonna call." I was pulling out the foreign cord. I was like, "Nah, they're not gonna call the house." And I remember there was another report card coming up, and I was asking my teacher, I was like, "Hey, can you tell me, like, did you talk too much in class again? I just want to know." And they were like, "Yes, we put talks too much in class again. You do talk too much in class." And I was like, "Please." I was like, "Please don't do this." And I thought back to the discipline that my aunt and uncle gave me. And we would watch this show called Prison Break, my cousins and myself. And if you don't know Prison Break, it's about a guy who breaks into prison. He gets into prison, then he breaks out of prison with his brother. And I was like, I can't get disciplined again. And I was like, I need to break out of here. So I remember it was like a Sunday, and I asked my aunt, I was like, "Hey, what would you do if I like disappeared?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "What do you mean disappear?" I was like, "Oh, no, if I just like left." And she's like, "I wouldn't do anything." I was like, "I guess you're gone?" I was like, "Okay, that is my answer. That's all I needed." So that Monday, way it works in Long Island, the bus would come pick you up and it would take you back home. The yellow cheese bus, the spot would be on your block. So I get on the bus. But the night before, I was like, I'm gonna pack up all my stuff to run away from this house to get to Brooklyn. So I had an extra pair of clothes. From all those chores I was doing, I made a little money. I was like, I made this money for the LIRR to get back to Brooklyn. Boom, I finished school, and I'm like nervous. And I'm not telling the people that my friends I'm running away, but I'm like, "Hey, folks, you'll never see me again. I'll see you later. Have a good one." And I remember getting off the cheese bus, and when they dropped me in front of the house, and I didn't go into the house. I waited till the bus went, and then I made my way to the LIRR Huntington station stop. And I pay some money, and I get a one-way train ticket back to Atlantic Barclays Center. This fucking kid paid a one-way ticket, and I'm sitting on the train, and I had a little snack that I bought from the kiosk, and there was a random dude that just sits next to me, and he's like, so where are you going? I was like, yeah, I'm going back home from school. And he was like, you go to school here? I was like, yeah, man. And in my head, I'm like, oh, this dude is trying to murder me. I was like, I'm not gonna die this way. And I was like, yeah, I'm just meeting my mom at the next station. And he was like, okay, cool. And then he like gets up and he like walks away. And I was like, whew, dodged one there, dodged one of those guys. And we get to Atlantic Barclays Center, and I got to get another, Metro card to go to Flatbush, Brooklyn. And I'm on the 2 train heading back from Atlantic back to Brooklyn. And I'm thinking in my head, I was like, man, this is gonna be great. My mom's gonna be so excited to see me. And that thing about, I was like, oh wait, I just ran away from her sister to go see her. I was like, and then I thought a little more. I was like, you know what? Maybe my mom didn't even want me around after all. Maybe I'm just gonna, what am I even doing? She doesn't want me here. I don't want to be in Long Island. You know what I'll do? I'll just live on the streets. So I get to Flatbush, Brooklyn, and I walked past my house, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't know. I've never done this before. I have a couple of dollars, and I'm like, I can't go back inside because I don't know. And so I just slept in a bush. I slept in a bush. And it started to rain, and I was like, this is terrible. And I went into a Dunkin' Donuts, and that's why I will always love and ride and die for Dunkin' Donuts, because they just let me walk in. I walked into a Dunkin' Donuts, and I just sat there. I had a coffee, I had a donut they got for free, and I just sat in the Dunkin' Donuts for the rest of the night, just talking to this lovely donut operator. And in the morning, it was like a Tuesday morning, and I was like, well, I should probably do my due diligence and go to school. And I went to a local school. And I was like covered in dirt and shit. And they're like, who are you? I was like, oh, I'm a new student here. And I just started walking. I had no fucking shit. I smelled terrible. I looked ridiculous. And I was just hanging in the lunchroom, making my people laugh like I do. Trying to get people to watch me drink milk through my nose. And then I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's like the security of the school with some policemen. And they're like, hey, can you come follow me? And I walk out of the school. They put me in the back of a squad car. And I go to this precinct, my first and last police precinct. It wasn't too bad. It was weird because they put me next to a holding cell with a guy in there. And I was eating like a Snickers bar, and we were both like just watching TV. It was very peaceful. And then my parents, my mom came to pick me up, and she's like, oh, we thought you died. And she's like, do you want to go back to Long Island? And I was like, no, I think I just want to stay in Brooklyn. And there's no real moral to this story. It's just about me running away and surviving. And this is a badass kid. Thank you so much. My name's Andrew. Have a good night.
Every school has the kid who like does stuff with their nose in the lunchroom, right? Like, and you were that. Yeah, my best friend was the kid at my school. He used to he would take like anything, like a spaghetti noodle or like a little piece of string, and he'd snort it up his nose, and then it'd come out his mouth, and he'd be like, that thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm glad I know another one of those kids now. That's an amazing story. Thank you so much. One more time for Andrew, everybody. All right, our next storyteller is also from Brooklyn, and she is a regular performer at the Magnet Theater, where she's on a house improv team there called Mood Light. And she's been on Adam Wade and Ophira Eisenberg's wonderful show, The Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. Really excited to have her on our show for the very first time. Please welcome Carma Anderson.
Thank you. I didn't grow today, so I appreciate that. Let me just, okay. Oh, wow, that's wonderful. As you can see, I was ahead of my time. At 15, I was wearing a pea coat. So, for most of my young life, I went to a private school, predominantly just around the 1% of white people. I was a scholarship kid, and for 6 out of the 8 years I went there, I was the only one of 2 black people in a class of 32. So obviously I was most popular. So, and as time went on, it became hard. I was very confused. It's hard being the only, especially at such a young age. It's not all it's cracked up to be. And I decided I didn't want to be the only. So I sabotaged a lot of private school, interviews, all girls schools, asking if they had men, so that's pretty much like the deal breaker. And so I decided to go to a high school in Brooklyn called Benjamin Banneker Academy, which if you've seen Wakanda and you know that from Black Panther, and if you haven't, you're probably racist. So, but if you have seen it, it's pretty much like the high school version of that. And I thought it'd be great. I'd be around people that looked like me, that were just gonna look at me for me, not because I was the one black girl, that had clean sneakers. That was a different thing. But it was hard. I like to say that I had this great thing. I was like, my people. No, my people did not like me at first. People thought I was weird. Apparently Uggs hadn't hit yet, so me wearing Uggs, in central Brooklyn wasn't a thing. My Tiffany necklace was real, but everybody thought it was fake. Shout out to Dad for that. And it made me stand out like a sore thumb. And so I had a boyfriend very early on, which is shocking for me because I went to school all the time before not having really any attention from the male gaze. And I know that's weird to think about at 14, but you're coming of age. It's nice to know that, you look like something. But when you don't know that, you don't know anything. So it was a weird time. I was very uncomfortable in this relationship. Although I had known this person for most of my life, this was a different territory. He was upper middle class black, but decided to be a gang member. So, that's very Brooklyn, if you don't know. And so I was very uncomfortable, like PDA holding hands. And, he was on the fast track to hell. So it was just like, if you're not gonna hold my hand, I can't really do anything. So he went to visit some family members in Jamaica and came back and broke up with me promptly. Of a 3-week relationship. And I was crushed. It was like my first real breakup. And so we took a trip to the museum. I don't remember which museum, but I'm sure it was a lot of white people, a lot of old shit. And we were on a cheese bus, and I remember getting all dressed up. If you can't tell by the fact that I'm wearing blazers that I got from Dave's Quality Meat, real sneakerheads know what that is. And this pea coat, which is Andrew Mark, which, come on. If you didn't know, I was very influenced by Kanye West pre-Insanity. And he was a black upper middle class hero who made backpack rap really cool. So, my Lacoste shirts were real and I wore them all the time. And I dressed like that. And I went to school and I was like, I'm going on a school trip. So obviously I have to bring out my best Banana Republic trench coat, a pleated skirt and a Coach Espadrille, which before Cameron made it uncool, was real cool. And I got on the bus and I'm like, okay, but for whatever reason, because, adults are sadists and don't put you with your friends, I'm on this bus with a bunch of people I don't speak to. And so I'm on the bus and all of a sudden, whack, right in the back of my head, it's a French fry. It's 9:30 in the morning. Where does anybody get a French fry from? And I'm like, maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I'm imagining all of this. And then another one hits, and then I hear a bunch of snickering. And it's my ex-boyfriend who didn't think that it was enough to just dump me. Now he has to publicly embarrass me in my best Wednesday outfit by throwing French fries that God only knows where he got them from. And he continues for what seems like the whole trip to the fucking city which probably really was only 5 minutes, but it feels like an eternity. Even now, it felt like an eternity. And I walked around and I stared at Greco-Roman penises for about an hour, and you know, I felt hot, like hot as hell, like so embarrassed. It just never went away. I thought, what am I supposed to do? It's March. I still got 4 months of school left. I got to deal with this. I'm like, this is never going to work. So I spent the rest of the year playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and ordering 555 from Domino's. And that pretty much was my freshman year. I hid my depression very well. I did really well in school, and I did really well in softball, so my parents weren't paying any mind to the other parts that I was crying at night. But the next year, over the summer, I grew a butt, and somehow that changed everything. Like, I came back to school, and I had all these friends, and, you know, I had that male gaze, like, you know, without the French fry, which is always a plus. And later that, you know, homecoming came around, and I actually got voted homecoming duchess, which was the version for the 10th grade. And I was like, wow, 8 months ago I was getting a fry thrown at me, and now I'm a homecoming duchess. And I would go on to win homecoming in high school and college 4 more different times. And I thought to myself, you know, as I got older, you know, I spoke to this asshole, which I've forgiven, and we became cool. And, you know, he said all the things you think would matter, but they don't. At the time, you think this is what you want, but they don't. But what I really learned as I was figuring out whether I was gonna tell this fucking embarrassing story, that if I could live a sitcom in real life, then I could do anything. So I went from geek to literally chic, and I got paid no money for it. Thank you.
If we make this show into a podcast, this episode's going to be called The Male Gaze Without the French Fry. It's my favorite phrase of the night so far. Let's hear it one more time for Carma, everybody. That was great. All right, we got one more storyteller for you tonight, but before we get to him, I just want to real quick tell you a little bit more about how you can get in touch with us. If you would, Lauren, do the special slide here. So if you're out there, watching on the live stream or sitting here thinking, you know, I have a story about my teenage years, please email us. Send us a pitch of your story to awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com. That's how we find a lot of our storytellers, is through that email pitches. You can also get in touch with us on all the social media things. We're most active on Instagram. We're a little bit on Facebook. We still have a Twitter account. Every day it seems like it's just breaking more and more, and soon we'll probably just delete it. But you can find us there for now. And YouTube is where we have all of our past shows, almost all of our past shows. I'm not quite caught up on uploading them all, but like we have, 25 or 30 shows, and most of them are there, and soon all of them will be there, including this one. So if you want to go back and find some storytellers you know who've appeared here, that's the place to do it. And I think that's everything that you need to know. Get in touch and follow us on the Instagram. We follow back, So, all right. Time for our final storyteller of the night. He has appeared on the Best of Risk and Stories from the Stage, and this is his 3rd time. Might be 4th time. I don't know. He's one of our favorites. We're glad to have him back. Please welcome Dave Hugh.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. During the early 90s, when I was 15 years old, I spent a lot of time here in the East Village. And I felt like I really blended in well with the neighborhood, my fresh shaven head, my oversized white t-shirt, my baggy-ass light blue jeans, and my white-on-white Air Force One knockoffs from Chinatown, looking like a homeless astronaut. Honestly, I felt out of place. I was a shy 15-year-old kid from the Bronx living in a predominantly white neighborhood. Kids made fun of me, not because of the clothes I wore, but because of the color of my skin. And I was naive. Growing up in an ignorant neighborhood, I did not know much about the city, nonetheless the East Village, other than what I saw on MTV's Alternative Nation. And Mom suggested I take a class at NYU to meet new people. And I thought it was a great idea because NYU was my dream school that I hoped to go one day after I graduate high school. And I picked up a brochure and I signed up for an introduction to life drawing class to meet new people and learn how to draw baskets of fruits like apples and oranges. And I told myself, how hard is it to draw baskets of fruit? On my first day of class, I'm really excited with my overpriced sketch pad and charcoal pencils from Pearl Art Supply on Canal Street in Chinatown. When I walked into class, I was completely shocked. It was empty, and all I saw was this wooden bar stool in the center of the room with this bright fluorescent light beaming down from the ceiling, surrounded by wooden tables. It was really scary and creepy. I felt like it was in a horror movie, like someone was about to get abducted or interrogated tonight. Then a bunch of students walk in. They all have their NYU sweatshirts on, carrying their overpriced sketch pads and charcoal pencils from Pearl Art Supply on Canal Street in Chinatown. And being 15 years old, I felt really cool being surrounded by older kids that went to NYU. Then the instructor walked in. She's this middle-aged woman with black hair and dark frame glasses. She introduces herself to the whole class, and she apologizes for being late. She tells us, please be patient. The model is on her way. And I'm like confused. I said, wait a minute, model? I thought we were going to sit down and draw baskets of fruits like apples and oranges tonight. Isn't this called an introduction to life drawing course? And she looks at me with this frazzled ass look. And she takes off her dark frame glasses and she says, excuse me? Baskets of fruits? Apples and oranges? Oh boy, you are in for a surprise. And everyone in the class just burst out in laughter. I am so embarrassed. I turn beet red, and I feel this bottomless pit in my stomach. I'm like, what did I do to offend her? Then the model walks in. She's this beautiful and natural woman in her 20s. She has curly brown shoulder-length hair. She has these bright blue eyes that went really well with a royal blue summer dress with sea monkeys on it. And she walks up to that wooden bar stool in the center of the room, and I could see that bright fluorescent light beaming down on her like a star. And she lifts up her royal blue sundress over her head, and I could see that royal blue sundress just slowly fall to the floor like a feather from the sky. And she is completely butt-ass naked. And I sat there, and I was like, whoa, she is really natural. And she sat on that wooden bar stool, and she's facing me, and we locked eyes, and she spread her legs wide open. And I sat there and I just stared at it. I never expected it to look like that. 15-year-old, shy and naive me from the Bronx never expected it to look like an overripe, unpitted peach. And I felt a hand on my shoulder and a whisper in my ear. And the instructor says, David, you should not just focus on her inner beauty, but her outer beauty as well. And I look up, and the model was staring at me. And she crosses her legs, and I got caught staring at her overripe peach. Everyone is giggling in the class, and I'm just so fucking embarrassed right now. I turn beet red. I feel that horrible bottomless pit in my stomach. All I want to do is just curl up in the fetal position under my overpriced sketch pad and die. Instead, I take that charcoal pencil and start scribbling in my sketch pad. Towards the end of the class, the instructor asked each of us to come up to the front and explain our drawing to everyone. And she says, David, can you please start it off? And I literally felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. I felt like pins and needles running through my veins. As I walk up to that wooden bar stool in the center of the room, I could feel that hot, bright fluorescent light beaming down on me. I feel beads of sweat running down my forehead, now on my face. And I prop that sketch pad on the wooden bar stool. And everyone in the room has like a blank stare on the face, try and process what's going on. And I take a deep breath, and I'm like, this is my interpretation of staring down the Grand Canyon. And everyone looks frazzled and confused. And the instructor says, David, brilliant. And everyone applauds and bursts out in laughter. I felt like a rock star. I finally was able to blend in with the rest of the class just like a basket of fruit. That evening happened to be one of my most awkward moments. Just like art, the way that we perceive others as well as new things is subjective and at times awkward. Just like taking a charcoal pencil and scribbling it across a sketch pad, and you start to know more about yourself after each stroke. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Keep it going for Dave, everybody. And let's hear it for all of our storytellers, for Carma and Andrew, Vicki and Carla. Got Lauren up in the booth making the tech magic happen. Debbie was your bartender tonight, and Kiera was the house manager. That's our show. Thank you so, so much for coming. We're here the first Wednesday of every month, except for next month, it's the second Wednesday because of the Frigid Festival. And the Frigid Festival starts in like 2 weeks. Check it out at frigid.nyc. There's a bunch of amazing shows, including Syncope. And you know, we hope to see you back next month. Thank you so much for coming. Good night.
Good night.